May I firstly invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Tan Sri Dzulkifli Abdul Razak, currently Rector of IIUM, former Vice Chancellor of USM, and my fellow colleague before on the board of MACC. Tan Sri.
Thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Let me thank you, first of all, to have me here to share my thoughts on SDG, which probably is slightly different from what I've heard today in this hall. Let me try and clarify. When we look at SDG, we go to the definition of development that is needed for today without compromising the development of tomorrow or the future as it is. Now, when we look at this definition, we will ask, what about the past? We talk about the present, we talk about the future, well, what about the past? And these are the questions that was raised by the previous panels. When we begin to understand SDG in a context which is quite different from what the past has been all about. If we look at Asia, we look at Bali, for example, the Subak system has been there 1,000 years. And the Subak system has been sustained for a long time before even the concept of SDG emerged 30 years ago. You go to Bhutan, the concept of sustainability was there since 1929. That was brought in, and the king then translated this into the concept of happiness. Now you know the gross national happiness is part of SDG. You go to Thailand, the previous king, 17 years ago, introduced, 70 years ago, introduced the concept of sufficiency economy. You go to Malaysia, when we look, the word sejahtera has been there from Sanskrit many, many years ago before even SDG has been crafted. So when you talk about SDG, it is to me a stunted sort of a concept within our own context, within our own value, within our own civilization. And therefore the past has not been attended to because we only understand SDG in the context of Eurocentric or Western-centric ideas. And therefore it doesn't work for us. When we talk about SDG, we translate it into pembangunan lestari. You go down to the kampung and ask makcik, bagaimana pembangunan lestari, makcik? And she blink at you twice and she say, makcik tak pakai listerin. Because we have taken it out of context. And suddenly you ask her, what about sejahtera, makcik? Oh, makcik memang sejahtera. You know? So we have got it wrong. Not only it is not uttered in the parliament, when it's uttered in the context that we don't even understand it. We work with the orang asli in our university, Kampung Orang Asli, which is very close, and we learn a lot more from them than they learn from us because they have been sustainable for a long time. The jungle is their library. The jungle is where they learn about things, and they have been interacting with the jungle. And they've got even gadgets called kerchang that they learn and teach their young how to be sustainable, and there are 10 kerchangs that you need to go through. They give me one kerchang, a professor as I am, I could not solve the problem because I don't have the thinking that these people have got. So we are diluting ourselves when we talk about SDG, the way we understand it, and therefore we need to come back to the past and understand the past so that at least Malaysia understands SDG in its own context, its own value, its own civilization, and its own worldview. Until we get that straight, I think we're just diluting ourselves, saying that, oh, we meet this target, we meet that target, we meet that target, but that target is actually meaningless. We are not focusing on the people, as Y.B. Williams say. We are focusing on the target, and the target is not people. And I think this needs to be put right. And therefore, when we talk about education, where has education gone wrong? Education, to me, has gone wrong because our education system is developed on an unsustainable sort of way. What do I mean by that? This education system comes out from the Industrial Revolution 300 years ago that started the whole thing to be unsustainable. There was no need to discuss about sustainability before the Industrial Revolution because it has been sustainable. It was the past. When Industrial Revolution comes in, when consumption goes up, when capitalism was introduced, when the word boss was introduced in the Second Revolution, then everything got topsy-turvy because they want mass production, because they want labor, then they create what they call schools, education system that is very much mirroring the factory. The university now is just another factory. At the end of the day, we produce human capital. We don't even produce human beings. And therefore, we do not have the completeness of what sustainability requests of us as making the target of humanity and the people around us. So these are issues that I think which is very, very fundamental that the Parliament wants to take on and ask, what is the education system doing at the moment in time? We've got a falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan that talks about sustainability ingrained in it 30 years ago when it was created. The word is sejahtera. Falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan say, in a nutshell, at the end of the day, everybody that goes through the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan to the education system must have what they call kesejahteraan diri. In other words, you feel the sejahtera in you, and then you can dispense sejahtera to other people. But what is sejahtera? Everybody talk about salam sejahtera, sejahtera Malaysia, Kedah sejahtera, you know. And in Kelantan, you also have tandas sejahtera. But what is sejahtera? Anybody can operationalize sejahtera before we can make sense that diri kita sejahtera. We do not. Why? Because we have neglected the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan for 30 years. And mind you, when the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan was created in 1988, the Sustainable Development Goal even emerged then in 1987. And the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan talk exactly what Tan Sri Omar was talking about. Insan seimbang dan harmonis. It's already there. Seimbangnya atas apa? Intelek, jasmani, rohani, emosi. Dasarnya kepada apa? Kepercayaan dan kepatuhan kepada Tuhan. Baru kita dapat kesejahteraan diri. But where is this concept in the education system today? We talk about everything else but the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan. Now we are going to the 12th Malaysia Plan. I really hope the Parliament will badger the Ministry of Education and see where is the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan in the 12th Malaysia Plan. If there is none, we are going to go into the same cycle again. When we finish the 12th Malaysia Plan, we will not be going out of the rot. In fact, we are going to rot further. Because why? Because we are now talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution. What is the 4th Industrial Revolution? It is not about automation. It is not just about efficiency in economy. It's about challenging the humankind itself. The discussion has not been completed. There's a discussion that talks about when the AI moves on an exponential rate, the human intelligence moves at a linear rate, you will meet a point called singularity. At the point of singularity, we will produce another species called the transhuman. Who knows about the transhuman? Can the Parliament prepare the future when you do not know what the transhuman is all about? But when you see the discourse about transhuman in the internet, they say the transhuman is even more powerful than God. That's the kind of discussion that I hope the Parliament gets involved in, highly intellectual, so that then we can craft a policy that actually determines our future in the character that we wanted. And therefore, the university must change. Whether you like it or not, the university must change. The university is not a bureaucratic setup. The university must be, and I want to put this on record, like a CSO. The university must function like a civil society that is mission-oriented, people-oriented, resourceful, autonomous, community-based, and collaborative. No more this hierarchy that we talk about. No more these layers that we talk about. No more pushing down from the ministry right to the university, that the university suddenly becomes another government department that do not have the intellectual capacity to bring the nation up to where it should be. On that note, let me just say thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tan Sri Dato Dzulkifli.
There are a couple of very important questions, and I'm not too sure whether I can answer them, but relatively, I think the question that the challenges that we're facing today is basically the kind of education that we want to promote within our own understanding of the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan is far from what has been talked about. For example, I'll give you a simple example. When we talk about the falsafah pendidikan kebangsaan, we are aiming at the human person. It's not any numbers, ranking, KPIs. Those are not the main issues that we talked about. And this mirrors very well to the 4 pillars of learning of UNESCO. And what are the 4 pillars of learning of UNESCO that we don't even talk about?
I'm sorry.
Learning to do, learning to know.
Prof, I'm sorry. Maybe my question was a little bit vague, But what I'm trying to get at is that the university, how is it, what kind of challenges had the university faced with respect to acting as an entity, fulfilling the needs of its vision, direction, its business operations, as well as fulfilling the needs of sustainable goals as generally defined, being inclusive, of race, religion, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly my point. When you talk about SDG, as far as we're concerned, it's about training a good human person. What is the argument for SDG now? We are moving into another era called the anthropocentric era, which means to say that human beings are now dismantling their own civilization as compared to the old era called the Holocene era. In other words, we've lost the capacity to maintain our own civilization because of the kind of education that we receive. There's a very nice quotation by one very important academic which says that, part of the problems that we have today are because people are having BSc, BA, LLB, whatever, all these degrees that has nothing to do with sustainability at the end of the day. I think we're teaching our people for something, an era that has gone. We are not teaching for people the era that we are meeting in the future, and this is exactly what Noorani is saying. When we sit with United Nations University in 2005, looking at SDG at that particular time, it wasn't SDG then, it was MDG, and ask the question, will university be able to deliver sustainable development in the form that it is now? The flat answer is no. Why? Because the structure is a very industrial structure. That we produce people for employment. Employment for what? For the factory that's already damaged the industry, the environment. We talk about mass production. We talk about consumerism. We talk about all those things that now is against sustainability. And we're producing them for that. We're sustaining the unsustainable. We need to change that. And that is, I think, the biggest thing because the country is not ready to change. The country is talking about 4IR. I have nothing wrong with the 4IR. But as we talk about 4IR in 2016, under the World Economic Forum, we are also talking about SDG on 2016, issued by United Nations, that our head of our prime ministers has signed on. Now, we talk about 4IR, but how many of us talk about SDG? The first time, I think, in a parliamentarian setting, we talk about SDG. But we're talking about 4IR all the time. Yesterday, there was Sophia somewhere. Who is Sophia? Is it she, is it it, or is it he? So these are issues that we have not talked about. When we talk about SDG, we are not giving enough emphasis on SDG when we talk about the natural inclination of human beings to be good human beings. We are talking about artificial intelligence and dumping millions of it, but we are not enough making human beings the good human beings that we want in terms of education. And this is what the holistic education is all about. And I come back to the 4 pillars of learning. 4 pillars of learning: learning to do, learning to know. We do this all the time. But there's 2 other pillars that we have neglected: learning to be. What is learning to be? It's to understand yourself as a human being. How many of us understand ourselves as a human being? And then when you understand yourself as a human being, then you go to another pillar, learning to live together. Because now we are on the same page as human being, humanity. It doesn't matter you come from Europe, wherever, but you know what is the understanding of human beings. So that is missing now. And as we talk about 4IR, that's going to be neglected even further because there is no, I'll give you an example for STEM, for example. We detest STEM. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Where is humanity? Where is philosophy? Where is religion? Are these not important? To make you that person before you become the scientist. We need to be the person first before we become an engineer, parliamentarian, minister, whatever. We become the minister, but we are less human. We become an engineer, we become robotic. We become doctors, we become whatever. We lose the human being that ties us all up in a setting that we need now for the world to be saved.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Can I just take another point which I think is very important? I want to talk, when we talk about 4IR, I'm not against 4IR, but why is the Japanese talking about Society 5.0? The most technologically advanced country in the world do not talk about 4IR. They talk about Society 5.0. And if you look at Society 5.0, everything is human-centric. They are not technological-centric. You begin to wonder, a country like Japan wants to talk about technology and technology, but they don't. They talk about how to be good human being, technology as an append. And I just give you one last example. A research has been done recently. Talk about digital lifestyle. 10 countries studies, 8 of them are developed countries, 2 are developing countries, which happen to be Malaysia and India. The question was this: how many of you cannot live without even looking at your device in a day? That was the question. I know the answer for you. But the global survey says 48% say we cannot live without even looking at a device in a day. 48%. For Malaysian, 70% say we can't even look at a device, we can't even live without looking at a device in a day. 70% out of the global sample say 50%. We are above them by 20%. What is German's number? German is 30%. What is Japanese number? Is 20%. Why is this developed technological country can live without that device? Why can't we? Not even a developed country technologically cannot live with a device. Now, I make a simple analogy. I hope this will stick with you. This analogy is just the technology that you've got is just like a toilet. You want it, you go and use it. After that, you moved out. You want it, you moved it again. And then you used out. But for Malaysian, we live in the toilet. 70% of our time, we live in the toilet because we're so obsessed about it because we don't understand what toilet is all about. And I think this is the duty of the parliamentarian to educate us. Thank you very much.